A whole year slipped by, and still Odysseus and his comrades were the guests of the island witch. By this time they were all exceeding weary of their sojourn. The pleasures of her palace had grown flat and stale, as such pleasures will, and they longed more and more to see their homes again. Odysseus was the most homesick of them all and the only one who had never for a day forgotten Ithaca. But he had waited patiently, after his nature, hoping that Circe would grow tired of him at last and give him leave to go, for he soon saw there was no escaping from the island without her knowledge and consent. Circe, however, seemed as fond of his company as ever, and, as the more he saw of her strange powers the more he feared her, he still held his peace. But at the 12-month's end, the crew were neither to hold nor to bind. Having taken Odysseus into the woods as if to hunt, they told him that they were ready to risk the worst that might befall, sooner than stop another day on the island. And they besought him with tears to take them away and try to sail home once more, since they would rather brave any death by sea or land than eat out their hearts in exile. And Odysseus, finding the men were desperate, said, "Comrades, what I can do, I will. Believe me, we can never leave this place alive unless the witch chooses. But I swear to you I will not sleep tonight before I have spoken to her, and the gods grant I may persuade her to let us go. So be you patient till tomorrow." That night, when they were alone together, Odysseus did speak to Circe, and, as he pleaded with her and told how longing for home and wife and child was consuming him and his comrades, his own tears fell fast. The witch heard him out with an inscrutable countenance. Then she said, "What needs this, my friend? Think you I have any desire to keep you in my halls as an unwilling guest? Nay, you are free to go whenever it pleases you, and I myself will do my best to speed you on your voyage. Only it is best you should go quickly. Lest mood should change," she added, looking at him strangely. Odysseus feared that too and hastily said, "With your leave, oh, mighty and gracious one, we will set sail at daybreak." "So be it," she answered, "but meanwhile sit beside me here, for ere we sleep I must tell you what yet remains for you to do before you can win home. Only tell me, kind Circe, how to shape a straight course for Ithaca." "You may not do that, Odysseus. Not yet. You have another voyage to make first, far into the west, ere you steer for your own land. Nay, do not groan and wring your hands, for so it is willed on high. Be calm and listen. When blind Teiresias, the great Theban seer, who lived 3 lives of mortal men, at last passed to the realm of Hades, Queen Persephone granted that his spirit, alone of all the dead, should keep the powers it had in the body. He only, I say, has consciousness, thought, memory, all the other dead are but shadowy phantoms, ever flitting aimlessly as in a dream. Now by the will of the gods, Teiresias will direct you on your voyage homeward and prophesy all that is to befall you hereafter." But when Odysseus heard that he must visit the land of the dead, his blood ran cold for very terror. He rocked himself to and fro in an agony of weeping and bewailed the day that he was born, and presently, "Oh, Circe, cruel Circe," he exclaimed, "why bid me the impossible? Where can I find a pilot to that bourne, whither no ship has ever sailed?" "Do not let that fret you," she replied, "for you will need none. You have only to unfurl your sails to the wind which I am going to give you, and let the ship drive before it. When it fails, you will see just ahead a low shore, edged with black poplars and weeping willows. There is your landing place. Nay, now, my friend, I cannot see you give way to weakness. Come, be yourself, brave seaman. Remember all you have dared and done when your only help was in your own wit and courage, and do not despair now, when you have at least one helper, who is not without some power." Then Odysseus calmed himself, and, when he had heard the rest of the witch's bidding, they went to sleep. But Odysseus slept little that night, and at peep of dawn he stole out of Circe's chamber and went softly through the house and, awaking his comrades, bade them follow him quickly, for still he had misgivings that her mood, as she had said, might change. And the crew, overjoyed, made haste down to the shore and the cave where they had laid up the ship. But for all their speed, the witch had been there before them and returned again to her house. Nay, she passed them as she returned, though they saw her not, for she walks invisible when she pleases. And behold, the ship lay on the beach ready for launching, and a black ram and a black ewe were tethered to her side. The men cried out for wonder. Then one said, "But what do we want with these 2 sheep? We can neither kill nor cook them on board." "They are for sacrifice," answered Odysseus, "at the place whither we go." And thereupon he told the crew whither they were bound, and all Circe's bidding. Bitterly they wept, and loudly they protested that it were better for them to die at once than go on that voyage. Yet seeing there was no help for it, and being in great fear of the witch's anger, they presently launched the ship and hoisted sail. And the wind she had promised drove them swiftly westward, till they passed through the gates of the Midland Sea and out into the great ocean stream that girdles the round world. After the sun had set, they came to a land whereon he never shines, but fog and mist cover it from year's end to year's end, and its folk, who are called the Cimmerians, live in perpetual gloom. As the ship drew near that darksome coast, the wind fell suddenly, and Odysseus saw the place Circe had told him of, the willows dry and sere and the poplar grove. There he landed and made 2 of his comrades bring the black ram and ewe ashore, and set about the rites that she had bidden him perform. First, going a little way into the poplar grove, he dug with his sword a shallow pit in the earth, a cubit square, and into this he poured a threefold drink offering to the dead, firstly milk and honey, next wine, lastly pure water. Then with his sword he cut the throats of the 2 sheep, holding them close to the pit so that their blood flowed into it. Instantly there came a mingled sound like the rustling of leaves and the sighing of wind and the twittering of birds, and ghostly forms were seen thronging near, forms of maidens, and old men, and warriors in blood-stained armor, and many others. At that, the hair of Odysseus and the 2 men with him rose on their heads and their teeth chattered for fear, but he mastered himself and said, "Quick, comrades, take the carcasses of the sheep and go back to the beach. Make a fire there and burn them, and pray the gods of the dead to accept the sacrifice." And the 2 made haste to obey. Now Circe had told him that the ghosts would come flocking to drink out of the pit, for they are athirst for life, and a draught of warm blood puts life into them a little while, but that he must keep them off with his sword and not suffer any to drink until Teiresias had come and taken his share. So there he stood on guard, waving the gleaming blade this way and that way, and the ghosts drew back, gibbering, for they cannot endure to look on iron or steel. Then suddenly stepped forth one who seemed no phantom but alive. Odysseus knew him and cried, "Elpenor! In the name of wonder, how came you hither, faster than our ship has sailed? In the hurry of departing, no one missed you from amongst us until we had put to sea. But doubtless here is some witch work of Circe's." "Not so, Odysseus," answered Elpenor in faint, hollow tones, and even as he spoke, the hues of life began to fade from his visage, and his form to grow shadowy like those others. "Not so," he said again. "I am come to this land of the dead because I am one of them. I died but a few moments after you left the house of the witch. Nay, start not, Odysseus, 'twas by no violence or treachery, but my own heedlessness. Last night, being heated with wine, I went up to the palace roof to sleep there in the cool. I woke suddenly, before it was yet daylight, and heard your voices and footsteps going away. And I leapt up to follow, but forgetting where I was, nor seeing in the dimness the trapdoor and the ladder by which I had gone up, I fell headlong from the roof and broke my neck. But, oh, my captain, I conjure you, as ever you hope to see home and loved ones again, forget me not when you return to Circe's isle, for return you will, I know. Let me not lie there unburied, unwept for, but burn me in mine arms on a funeral pyre, with dirges due. Then heap a mound over my bones, by the seashore, and set up mire thereon the or I toiled it long among my comrades, that mariners passing by may know 'tis a sailor's tomb and pity him his death far from home." "All this shall be done as you wish, hapless one," said Odysseus, much moved. Then Elpenor departed, nor looked behind him as he went. And now among the hovering faces near Odysseus saw that of his mother, whom he had left alive when he sailed for Troy. Sorely he wept at that sight, much he longed to let her come near, but dared not lower the sword till Teiresias should come. Immediately after, a tall, majestic old man drew near, for whom the other souls made way with reverent looks. He held a golden scepter in his hand, and by his white chaplet and seer's mantle Odysseus knew this was Teiresias at last. "Son of Laertes," said the seer, "why hast thou quitted the light of day and come unto this realm of the dead, where no joy is? If it be to hear soothsay of me, stand away from the pit that I may drink of the blood, and put up thy sword into the scabbard." Then Odysseus sheathed the sword, and Teiresias stooped down and drank. But the other souls held aloof, reverencing the great seer. He, when he had drunk, began to speak thus. "Thou art come to inquire of me, Odysseus, concerning thy homecoming, whether it shall be accomplished. Know, then, that much toil and many perils are yet in store for thee, for thou hast a mighty adversary, even Poseidon, yea, hot and quenchless is his wrath against thee for the blinding of the Cyclops, his son. Therefore, he has vexed thee with all his storms and, wert thou not protected by others among the immortals, he had wrecked thy ship ere now. As long as thou sailest the seas, he will be ever on the watch to do thee a mischief. Yet for all this thou mayest come safe home if thou heed the warning I now give thee. Thou comest from Circe's isle, 'twas that powerful enchantress, daughter of the sun god, who sent thee unto me, and to her thou must return. Fear nothing, she will let thee go as soon as she has given thee good store of all things needful for thy homeward voyage. Also, she will tell thee what course to steer, and of 3 strange perils that await thee thereon, and how to escape them. But now mark heedfully what I shall say. Those perils past, thou wilt come to the island called Trinacria, where there are 7 herds of kine and 7 flocks of sheep that belong to Helios the sun god. If thou and thy comrades lay no hand on these, then shall ye all return safe to Ithaca. But if not, all that have shared in that sacrilege shall perish at sea. And if thou thyself escape that doom, yet shall thy homecoming be long delayed and very grievous unto thee, for thou wilt return alone, in a ship borrowed from strangers, having lost thine own vessel and all thy comrades, and thou shalt find sore trouble at home, even men of violence lording it in thy house, wooing thy wife and devouring thy substance. At these words, Odysseus laid his hand on his sword hilt, and his grey eyes kindled. And shall I not take swift vengeance on those men, he asked, and set my house in order? Aye, said Teiresias, that thou wilt do, whether by craft or an open fight. But soon thou wilt weary of dwelling idle in thy petty kingdom, soon the lust of wandering and adventure will possess thee again. Then, oh, sailor, take thine oar upon thy shoulder and fare forth. Travel on, till thou come to a country so far inland that its folk know nothing of the sea, nor of ships, nor of oars, that are as it were the wings whereby ships fly, neither have ever tasted salt, the fruit of the sea. And this shall be a clear sign to thee that thou art come to thy goal. Another wayfarer shall meet thee on the road and, beholding thee or thou bearest on thy shoulder, shall say, This is some new sort of winnowing fan. Then plant thine oar in the ground and do sacrifice to Poseidon, for then will he be reconciled. After that, return thou home again and offer a sacrifice of 100 oxen to all the gods. But know, lastly, that death shall come to thee at last in gentle wise, and not upon the sea. Thou wilt die in a green old age, with thy folk dwelling peaceably about thee. Thus the Theban seer ended his prophecy. Then said Odysseus, So be it, Teiresias, for all these things the gods have ordained as it seemed good to them. But now tell me one thing more, I pray you. Yonder I see the spirit of my dead mother. Look, there she sits nearest, gazing on the pool of blood, but me she neither regards nor speaks to. What can I do to make her recognize her son? Teiresias answered, Those spirits only can hold speech with thee whom thou shalt suffer to drink of the blood. And with that he departed to his own place. Then Odysseus beckoned with his hand to the spirit of Aeaea, his mother, and she glided to the pit and drank. And straightway she knew him and cried out, Oh, my son, what do you here, in the kingdom of Hades? For I see well that you are a living man. Troy fell long since. No, have you not yet been home? Odysseus made answer, Mother mine, I came hither to seek guidance from Teiresias of Thebes, and not yet have I revisited my home. Of a truth, sorrow and trouble have been my portion since first I went with King Agamemnon to Troyland. But I left you there alive and hale. Tell me, dear mother, how you died. Was it some wasting sickness or a sudden shaft of Artemis, the destroyer of so many women, that laid you low? And my father, and my young son, do they live and prosper, possessing what was mine, or have others despoiled them of it? And Penelope my wife, is she true to me all this while, or has she given me up for lost and wedded some princely suitor? Then said Aeaea, My son, Penelope is a faithful wife and sits weeping for you day and night. And Telemachus your son holds his due place both in your house and in all assemblies of the folk, with whom he is in high favor. But your father, worn out by age and sorrows, has withdrawn from the city to a poor hut on an outlying farm of yours and lives there in the humblest fashion, evermore mourning for his lost son. As for me, 'twas neither slow disease nor the swift arrows of Artemis that killed me. No, I died of sheer longing for you, child of my heart, so sorely did I miss your loving ways and wise counsel in all household troubles. Then fain would Odysseus have embraced and kissed his dear mother. Thrice he sprang forward with outstretched arms and thrice his arms closed upon empty air. How is this, my mother? He cried despairingly. Nay, sure, you are not my mother, but a phantom that Persephone, queen of the dead, has sent me in her likeness. But the soul of Aeaea answered, Thus it is with us who are dead, my son. We have no longer flesh and bones that may be grasped, for those have been consumed by the funeral fire. That which survives those flames is but the shadowy counterfeit of our living selves. Even such am I now, dear son. And so farewell, but if you will heed your mother's bidding, return as soon as may be to the light of day and, when you come home, tell all that you have seen and heard to your wife. Before Odysseus could answer, the soul of his mother vanished from his sight. Then, by the sending of Queen Persephone, there came to him the souls of women famed for their beauty in ancient times. He suffered them to come near, one by one, and drink of the blood, and each, when she had drunk, told him her name and story. Thus he saw Alcmena, who bore Heracles to Zeus, and Leda, fairest of all women saving her daughter Helen, and mother also of the great twin brethren Castor and Pollux. Next came the beauteous Aeaea, whom Poseidon loved. She too was the mother of twin sons, Odysseus and Ephialtes. Those two even in childhood grew taller and more huge than any mortal man, for at 9 years old their height was 54 feet, and their breadth 15. Then in the pride of their giant strength, they boasted that they would root up lofty Mount Pelion, and set it on the top of Mount Aeaea, and so climb up to the house of Zeus in heaven. But ere that could be, or the down had grown upon their cheeks, Phoebus Apollo slew them both with his keen arrows. Many other renowned fair ones did Odysseus behold, of whom time fails me to tell. Last of all came Aeaea, the lovely and false-hearted, who sold her husband's life for gold. When all these had come and gone and by Queen Persephone's command they vanished swiftly as they came, there drew near a stately form, robed and sceptered like a king. And Odysseus saw it was the soul of King Agamemnon. The spirit groaned aloud as it came, even such a groan had the dying king thrice uttered under the blows of his murderess. But Odysseus, who had last seen him homeward bound with the spoils of Troy, knew nothing of his death, and deeply it grieved him, for he had been Agamemnon's most trusted friend and counselor throughout the long war. As soon as the soul of Agamemnon had drunk of the blood, it knew Odysseus and stretched out its arms to embrace him, but in vain, for it was but a shadow without substance. Struck with pity, Odysseus cried, "Alas, King Agamemnon, once mightiest of all the kings of the earth, is it thus with you now? Tell me, I pray you, how you died. Did Poseidon raise a tempest and wreck your ships on your passage home, or were you killed in some war or foray you made afterward?" "I perished neither in shipwreck nor battle," answered Agamemnon, "but by the treachery of my accursed wife. Long had she been false to me with Aegisthus my kinsman, and for love of him she foully murdered me on the very day of my homecoming. Verily, there is nothing on earth so terrible and shameless as a woman, for, how Clytemnestra welcomed me, with fond looks and honeyed speeches, praising my prowess to the skies and forcing on me honors only fit for the gods. Never did wife seem more overjoyed to see her lord come home in triumph. But 'twas all feigning, all part of her plot to destroy me. And I, suspecting nothing, let her unarm me and cover me with a great scarlet robe and lead me to the warm bath prepared for my refreshment. Then, Odysseus, as I lay in the bath, my wife suddenly threw the heavy robe right over me, and before I could free head or limbs, she struck me 3 mortal blows with an axe. That was my death, slaughtered as men slay an ox for the sacrifice. Surely this deed of Clytemnestra's shall be a reproach to all women forevermore, even to the good among them." Odysseus shuddered and said, "Truly, Zeus must have ordained that the daughters of Teiresias should be ministers of doom on earth, for the one you wedded has destroyed her own husband, and for her sister Helen's sake thousands of brave men have been slain in battle." Then said Agamemnon, "Take warning from me, Odysseus, not to be over gentle with any woman and never to let any know your whole heart and mind. Not that you need fear harm from your wife, for Penelope, I know, is good and wise. But yet, mark well the counsel I now give you. When you go home at last, do not return openly, but in secret. Remember this, I say, for henceforth no man may wholly trust a woman. But now tell me, have you heard any tidings of my son Orestes, whether he lives, and how he fares? Ah, how I long to see my boy again. He was but an infant when I left him, but even that my cruel wife denied me. When I asked where he was, she said she had sent him away to the care of good friends, because there had been tumults and threats of rebellion in the city. Surely he is yet alive, know you aught of him, my friend?" Odysseus answered, "Do not ask me concerning Orestes, king, for I know not whether he is alive or dead, and to speak to no purpose was never my way." Then with a heavy sigh the soul of Agamemnon turned and departed. Looking after him as he went, Odysseus saw that beyond the dusky grove lay a vast meadow, covered with flowering asphodel, where troops of souls were roaming in a pale light like misty moonshine. And as one troop came swiftly toward him, he saw the familiar faces of heroes who had fought and died at Troy. Achilles was there with Patroclus at his side, and old Nestor's brave son Antilochus, who laid down his life for his father, and Ajax, the strongest man of all the Greek host after the son of Peleus. Achilles led the band and, wherever he walked, all the souls made way for him, bowing low as to their king. So he came first to the pit of blood and, soon as he was ware of Odysseus, he said in a lamentable voice, "What marvel is this that thou hast done, son of Laertes, and how couldst thou dare to enter the abode of the dead?" "I came, O Achilles, to seek counsel of Teiresias the seer, how I might return to my home, for, alas, not yet have I set foot on Ithaca nor on any Greek soil, but ever since leaving Troy I have wandered to and fro upon the seas in toils and troubles without end. So evil is the fate allotted me, how different, from yours, Achilles. There never was, no, nor ever will be, a happier man than you, for in your lifetime we Greeks paid you such honors as are rendered to the gods, and now in death you are king over all the folk of this wide land. But Achilles answered, Speak not to me, Odysseus, words of comfort concerning death. Far rather would I drudge for hire under some poor man's roof that is scarce bread for his household, if only I might be alive upon the earth, then reign over all the nations of the dead. But come, give me tidings of my young son. Did he come to lead my Myrmidons at Troy and take my place among the Greek princes? And the old man, my father Peleus, does he yet hold sway among our people, or do they set him at naught because of his age and infirmities? Ah, could I come back to the light of day, such as I was when I slew my thousands before Troy walls, full soon and full dearly should they pay for it if they have robbed the old man of his dues. Of Peleus I have heard nothing, said Odysseus, but of your son Neoptolemus I have much to tell you. I myself fetched him from Scyros at the bidding of our chiefs, and youth though he was, he proved equal to the best of us both in counsel and in fight. As for the warriors he slew, I could not tell you their names, so many they were, but the chiefest was the Mysian prince Eurypylus, the goodliest man that ever I saw save Memnon, son of the morning. And when we who were chosen by lot lay ambushed in the wooden horse that Aeaea devised, to take Troy by stratagem, then, I say, the rest of us trembled and wept for dread of discovery. But your son, he only neither grew pale nor shed a tear, he was all impatience to sally out from the horse. Nay, he kept his hand on his sword hilt the whole time, so intent was he on the coming slaughter of the Trojans. So when we sacked Priam's town next day, Neoptolemus had a right noble share of the spoil, as well he deserved, and sailed home with it, on board ship. And, moreover, he returned from the war not only safe but sound, for he was never once wounded in all his many and desperate combats. When Odysseus had thus spoken, the soul of Achilles went away with long strides across the asphodel meadow, joying that his son had won so great renown in war. The souls of other heroes, once his comrades, spoke each in turn with Odysseus and told their woeful stories. But Ajax stood apart, in sullen silence, for still he nursed bitter wrath against the man who by his wiles and glib speech had defrauded him of the precious arms of Achilles. Odysseus was fain to soothe him and said, Are you still angry, great Ajax, because of those accursed golden arms? Surely Zeus sent them for a bane to the Greeks, seeing that the loss of them caused your death, our tower of strength. Believe me, all our host mourned for you even as they mourned for Achilles himself. But Ajax, blame not me for the death you died, rather blame Zeus, who thereby wreaked his wrath upon us all, and come hither now and speak to me. But Ajax answered him never a word, nor looked at him, but departed. And now a daring wish came into the heart of Odysseus that he might traverse the asphodel meadow, even to the house of Hades, god of the dead, and behold Queen Persephone in her beauty. He longed also to see the famous sinners of olden time whose eternal torments the gods had made known to men for their warning, Ixion, bound upon an ever-whirling wheel, Sisyphus, vainly laboring to roll a huge stone to a hilltop, and Tantalus, tormented by hunger and thirst, breast-deep in a pool of water that vanished when he stooped to drink, beneath fruit-laden boughs that the wind forever tossed out of his reach. But at that moment, with a great crying as of seabirds, an innumerable multitude of the souls came rushing towards him over the meadow, and he turned and fled to the beach. Queen Persephone is angry, he thought, that I linger here when my errand is done. What if she send forth against me the spectre of the dread Gorgon, the sight whereof will turn me to stone? Then with all speed he and his comrades got to sea again, and, as soon as they had rowed out a little way and hoisted sail, the wind Circe raised for them wafted them swiftly on their course. All day they sailed, and at nightfall once more landed on her isle. A great fire of logs and brushwood was burning on the shore. Beside it stood Circe, her gold and scarlet robe lit up by the glow. Nearby, her 4 handmaidens were setting out a goodly meal from baskets, meat ready roasted, white bread, honey, and jars of wine. Smilingly she greeted Odysseus and his crew as they stepped ashore. Ah, friends, she said, reckless adventurers you are indeed, who must needs go twice to death's abode, which others visit once only. Come, now, eat and drink, and sleep beside your ship this night, and tomorrow you shall set sail again. And the men did as she bade them, glad at heart because they saw the witch would not take them to her house again, but let them go free. When they had feasted, she took Odysseus by the hand and led him apart from the rest, and inquired of him what he had seen and done. And when he had related it all, she told him the course he must steer, the perils he would meet on his voyage, and how he might escape them. But chiefly she warned him, as did Teiresias, not to touch the sacred herds of the sun, for that would be his undoing. After that, she bade him farewell. Next morning, the crew were eager to depart, But Odysseus was mindful of his promise to Elpenor's ghost and, taking his men with him, he went up to the house of Circe. The doors were closed and all was silent within. They found the dead body lying where it had fallen, and bore it down to the shore and gave it the rites of burning and burial, weeping and mourning for their comrade. Also, they raised a great mound and set his or thereon for a memorial. And when all this was done, they sailed away with a fair wind from Aeaea, olive enchantments. Many adventures still awaited Odysseus before he came home at last, but, of all that befell him in his long wanderings, I think the two things that dwelt clearest in his remembrance were his sojourn with Circe and his visit to the land of shadows.